Hey everybody, welcome to episode 62 of Pealed Back's LiveCast Conversations With, as always, I'm your host, Gene the Enjoyment Coach, and today, my friend Justin Goodhew's on the show.
Gene, how's it going?
Good, my friend, good. So let's talk a little bit about Justin. Justin is the founder and CEO of Trellis.org, a social enterprise technology company that is an all-in-one fundraising platform designed specifically to meet the needs of charities to empower global collective impact. Justin has had the spark to be an entrepreneur since an early age. By the time he was 23, he'd already had 2 company failures under his belt, and in his own words, it was like getting an MBA. He does not look at failures as a bad thing. He understands to continue to grow as a leader and an entrepreneur, he has to courageously stand outside of his comfort zone. Going from an RA at UBC, getting fired from his volunteer position, to accidentally winning a pitch competition, starting multiple businesses, led him to his journey of building a new technology startup focused on fundraising well in a global pandemic. This is only achieved through learning and applying that knowledge rapidly and seeing the opportunities others will not. Justin, my words definitely do not do you justice, my friend.
Well, I mean, I liked it. It sounded good. I know you helped me with that. So I'm just looking at that photo that was at the front, and that definitely doesn't do me justice anymore. I think the COVID hairstyles really come into effect a little bit. So I think after seeing that, I might have to go see a barber. I think that photo is unfair. They were expecting this, nice trim guy, and it's just like a caveman on you. So, but yeah, the bio for sure. No, I appreciated it.
You're very welcome, man. And I love the longer hair. It's looking good. It's, you could call it your start to your playoff beard in hair.
Yeah. Start to something anyways. Holy.
Well, let's jump into your journey a little bit. You've definitely been around the block as an entrepreneur and a leader. So, tell us about where you got started with it. Like, where'd that spark for building businesses come from?
Good question. So I think, as it mentioned, I think every crisis is an opportunity. I use that line a lot with my team when dealing with customers and things like that. And I think it happened, honestly, I always wanted to start a business. I wanted to be a pilot, so then I could literally have a lot of time off to start a business when I was like a kid. And then I went and got into business school because it was in BC and I could snowboard. So that's really why. And then, but after that, I actually got fired from that volunteer position. Like I was volunteering my time for free and they fired me. And it was definitely a lot of fault on my side for sure. I just had a lot of passion and needed to harness that somewhere else. And that's when I went to a startup weekend and started a company. So it was that crisis of getting fired, having a lot of self-reflection of what I was doing right and wrong, and then starting a business because I really couldn't get a job, Gene. Like I applied to like 40 jobs when I was graduating my final year of school and no one even interviewed me. So it was kind of out of necessity. No one wanted to interview me. So I started a company to help others get jobs because why not? If I can't do it, teach it, right? And long story short, it was a year and a half, 2 years. A lot of people are like, what are you doing? This is weird. But then we got money, went down to Silicon Valley, did that whole thing. And I hospitalized myself with just pure stress when I was down there, man. Wow. I thought I had to build $1 million company in like a month, and it was really hard and stressful. And every meeting I went into, I had to write down 7 or 8 different things and then go and Google them, right? And they're like, oh, just do some Facebook ads. Sure, never done that. Okay, go learn how to do Facebook ads in a day. Start putting up a campaign the next day, and then iterate on the data. Like it was just that was the pace. It was exciting and it was horrible, and I learned a lot. But the moral of the story, as I ramble on, is I went and applied to jobs after that company failed. and I applied to 3 jobs, and within a week I had 3 offers.
What do you think changed? Like, how did you approach it differently than you did the first time? Like that's obviously the first little step into marketing and being a founder. You have to be a bit of a salesperson.
Yeah, I don't even think it was salesperson. I think it's just like, you want to get experience, go and do it yourself. Right? Like, I think because I did so much failing and so much learning and failing up, not just failing, by the way. I think failure is really bad if you keep making the same mistake. And as humans, we're really good at doing that. So failing up is key. And I think I just failed up a lot. I failed, and then I was really hard on myself, and I have to watch that about myself. And what did I do wrong? How can I be better? Okay, let's go. And these are conversations I have, hourly, sometimes daily, with myself. And that was kind of the big moment, was after all of that learning and failing and being like, was that worth it? Was it not? I applied to these jobs and got that, because I think managers and founders respect that experience and respect the learning and value those skills.
Oh, 100%. Right. And I kind of want to jump back into your perspective of viewing failure, being like, well, that was early in your young adult and professional life. Like, a lot of people have this really bad relationship with failure. And I really like the way that you view it. Is that something that you've always had, or is that something that you had to build into yourself?
No, I think I was blessed, right? I grew up in a really privileged household, and my parents were really supportive of everything I tried. And when I was 15 and I went to become a snowboard instructor, and I went and I failed, and I thought I was like this awesome snowboarder, and I didn't get the certification, and it was a really easy one to get. And I was dejected and everything. And instead of them, just letting me accept it, they said, well, there's one next week. What did you do wrong? Do you want to try again? Right. And being learning and doing that process as a kid, I think and then them stepping up and trying to make it happen, I think instilled that in me without me even realizing what they were doing. So really blessed to have 2 parents that focused on that. And then, coming into university, and then failing at applying for all these jobs and getting fired, and then doing a company when everyone else had these cool jobs, and I was still trying to make ends meet and basically living off a very small amount of money. But then you fast forward 2 years, and all the learning and experience I had, and then the job offers I had after that, it was like, okay, this really does work. And I just got to get smacked in the face with it a couple times to really, and I got lucky enough to stumble into that early in my career. And now it's, I think, unfortunately, cancel culture in society, and we have to be this perfect thing is really tough. And that's why I love these conversations that you're hosting, because it's much more real. Right. So how do we keep doing that? And I think people like yourself are doing it, and me talking about what it's actually like an overnight success is just complete bullshit, man.
Oh, 100%.
It's a overnight success. I read it as, oh, that was 5 years at least of someone's hard work and nothing else that they did. Right.
I feel like we've probably even had that conversation, because I've used that exact line on a lot of people that look, especially in the tech world, be like, oh, what an overnight success. Be like, no, that you just found out about them. It's like we were talking about earlier. It's just at some point that if you keep failing up and keep playing at that slight edge, all of a sudden that compounds and turns into a big success. And they're like, oh, when did this happen? Be like, this happened while I was getting punched in the face at the beginning of this entrepreneur trip over and over. And I just learned how to dodge and weave and throw a few back. And now here we are kicking ass. This is definitely not an overnight success.
No. I mean, just go look at the data, right? All of the successful founders, except for the unicorns that everyone talks about, they all had failures beforehand. They all had a ton of experience and learning to then become successful, right? And that's the data says it right there, even just the age and experiences and where they've come from. So,
and I think as well, there's a component of if you're not willing to play in failure a little bit, are you really taking the risks? Are you actually growing and doing anything with your life? There's I used to call it you're either growing or you're some form of a walking zombie as a business going, we're not growing, we're playing a very defensive spot. Be like, then you're dying, and you just don't know when that date is yet.
Yeah. I think there's 2 reasons why people are afraid of failure. And I think one of it is they're not humble enough to admit when they're wrong. Right. And I think that's an ego thing. They're not humble enough. And that's, like literally almost like weekly, at least in my team or daily, I tell someone on my team, like, I think I failed you this way. I was thinking about a conversation and I meant to do this and I went like that. Can we talk about it again? And that's where you get the real conversations and the real growth and the real connections. Right. So I think having the humility to just be like, hey, like I screwed up. Like, I mean, I'll tell you right now what I'm really nervous about and I really don't want to fail on, but I know I will. And I just am really scared of, and is the conversation around decolonization and the conversation around diversity and equity and inclusion and the conversation around that. Because I mean, I said, look at the data, like the data is also privileged white males that start these companies. Like imagine if you're not me and you're trying to start a company and you have different diversity and different experiences and inclusions, and even just be able to talk about it on a live cast and hopefully you don't say something wrong. So I'm trying to lead my team in our diversity, equity, and inclusion conversation, for example. And I don't know anything about it. And like, I've been very privileged. And like, of course I bring my own diversity. I'm a person, but like, it's very different coming from me than coming from someone else. And as the leader and trying to do it the right way when you don't have the knowledge. Right. So I think having the humility to fail, I think is great. And then the second one is the fear, right? Fear of failure. It's scary to look bad and you just have to get over that fear. And it's just practice like anything else. So I'm just really good at falling on my face, really. And then
you had a ton of practice.
So much practice. Yeah. There was an article written about me, the first ever article in the paper. And I went to send it to my parents. And I was like early 20s. And I was like, look, I'm in the paper. And the title is like, failure is an option. And then my face. And like, that's me. Like that's it in a nutshell. It's like, yeah, I'm just a failure. And I think success is moving from failure to failure without any lack of enthusiasm. And that's from Winston Churchill. And that's kind of, I don't really like quotes, but that one just was like, whoa, yeah, that works. So.
And here I was about to quote you for that. I was like, wow, but it's a great way to reframe what success means. Is like how quickly can you, not only how quickly can you move to it, but are you still excited about the move?
Yeah.
Like, are you excited about the process? Like Gary Vee rants and raves about the process. Love you, Gary. But there's a whole lot of truth into it, because like built into that process is like that vicious cycle of like try, learn, fail, try again, and just keep on. Are you willing to keep it moving forward?
Yeah, and enjoy the process, right? And what I'm working on now is like trusting that you're gonna succeed. Yeah. Right. So you have to actually trust that you're gonna succeed, and trusting that process truly, because when you have jobs on the line, when you have different like contracts on all these different these different stakes. It's hard to just be like, yeah, we're going to figure it out. But then you start figuring it out all the time, because you just go through the process and you know that you have the right people in place to solve whatever problem comes at you, like COVID, like anything else. You have that kind of confidence, but it's still hard. I still struggle with that. Right. And it's like, yeah, I know I'm going to figure it out, but like, if I don't, right. And you can't, but if you come from that fear mentality, you're never going to solve the problem, right? Because you're thinking about it in a fear base versus like a positive way. Yeah. Right. Well, and I think you can't be creative.
No, and I think there's a lot of like mentally, like whatever we say, what we're looking for, like you say, we can either say, oh, how is this going to be a failure from like a really bad place? And guess what? We're going to go find it. We're like incredibly creative and resourceful little creatures. Or you can be like, well, how are we going to find the opportunity in this challenge? Like those two questions, like on the surface might seem like the same thing, but you're pre-programming your subconscious and putting it out there in a way that's going to get wildly different answers.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And in framing and the stories that we tell ourselves, our internal dialogue is just so huge.
Oh yeah. What how do you sit with the stories that you tell yourself?
Well, I can downward spiral really quick, right? It's really easy to, especially when you get knocked in the teeth, like in business or in life. And when you're at, I don't know, like we were chatting before, like, I operate at 110% all the time, and that's not a healthy way to operate. And then when the rest of when the world's in a pandemic and everything is kind of off a little bit, you can't operate at 110% because everything is just harder already, and you're already operating at way over capacity. So, I mean, for me, it's just trying to stay grounded and understand what I need to do and what I don't need to do, and move in from there, I guess.
That's a powerful answer, and I hope a lot of people are paying attention to that.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's like you talked about, like the world is rapidly changing. We have less predictability than we did 2 years ago, and or maybe it was like a false predictability we had, but we definitely, the blinders are off now.
Yeah.
How has that changed as a leader? Is like part of your job, like I've known you, you're a visionary, so you're looking forward. How has this like unpredictability-ness changed the way that how far are you looking forward now?
I like it. I look further ahead and closer, I guess, than I did before. So let's say if it was, I have a plan for the next 6 months and I know where I want to be in 5 years. Now I have a plan for the next 2 months and I know where I want to be in 10 years. Yeah. And because I think that it's so much, I mean, I just love the space I'm in, like a social enterprise, trying to create sustainable and resilient charities to solve these world's problems. Like it's just, trying to give them better shovels. I mean, it's just, that's why we're called Trellis, right? Because we're the backbone of their growth, trying to like support them. And we're not the ones on the front line, but we're the ones trying to help them do better. And I think what that, allows us to do is just, I guess try and put it into a perspective where we can make a difference in a way that gives us purpose so we can get through the crazy times of the pandemic, but also in the right way. And as a leader, what I want to do is see what's coming, plan for that, but then also make sure that the team that I've built is adaptable, because that's the only thing the only thing I know for certain, Gene, is that no one knows what's coming anymore.
Oh, that's true.
That's the only certainty I have. Everything else I'm not certain about. I can definitely, I'd look at the data, right? I don't read the articles. I just look at the data. So then I know if there's a fifth wave coming or not. So I've been actually pretty accurate on a lot of that stuff because the data shows, the rising. So then what's coming. Regulations are coming in. Our business is used to be on in-person events, right? So those things you can predict, but only 2 months ahead, 3 months ahead, and that's it. And I did way more planning when we were way smaller of a team. Now the planning is like team development, trying to deal with mental health, right? Trying to keep them motivated and excited because it's hard, right? But I think that is for anyone. So I think every business is facing the same thing.
I think that's a really powerful insight as a leader, to be like, instead of focusing on necessarily like the hardcore metrics or like, here's what we're going to deliver, you're focusing on building the team to be able to handle whatever comes at you, because they can deliver. And you're going to be able to respond much quicker because the team's in a solid space, versus a team that's like on the brink and then something, they get hit by another speed bump and pop apart. That doesn't serve the business. That doesn't serve the other charities and social enterprises that you're working with.
No,
I think that's like I want to commend you, man. That's really awesome.
Thanks, buddy.
Not a lot of people think like that, I don't think. I think more should.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think there's a lot of people that do, but yeah, I love to chat with people that are smarter than me, and that people that have a little bit more vision or have experienced a little bit more and align with my values. Because man, like you can really accelerate your learning that way. And that's like, most of the lines I say are because I've heard other people say them. And then I'm like, can I steal that? Cause I love it. And it's more for me to remind myself. So I'm really just being really selfish, Gene, but thanks.
Well, but your selfishness is resulting in some really incredible things. And like your team members are going to remember this experience for the rest of their life.
Oh man, that's I just get chills when you say that. It's really scary. Like, I mean, I have a bunch of individuals, we're up to 17 people. So we're not large, but we're also not small. And they're committing, 40, sometimes 50, sometimes 60 hours a week when COVID was crazy. And we're trying to do that to this idea. And like, I used to be nervous, Gene, about people taking advantage of me. Like that was what my personality trait comes out with in a lot of the tests and stuff. And I'm very skeptical with this team. Like, I just get so nervous. I'm going to take advantage of them because like they're giving me so much hard work every week, every day. Like one of your good friends is on my team here. And like, it's just gives me shivers and also makes me really nervous that like they're here, they come in every day and they want to attack this mission that we have to help these charities. Like, it's just, it's truly humbling and also nerve wracking. Like that's the stuff that matters, is the people, right? Yeah. So.
When I think being able to hold that space of like going, like, what an honor to be able to like have that feeling toward, like, to know that your team can even look at this and go, like, our boss has our back, and like he's here to, like, we're not just a number. We're part of this team here to build something incredible.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's not just a number. You're doing something that matters, right? Like, yes, we all need a paycheck, but I think purpose is above that for sure, right? It gives you that sense of accomplishment, and especially in a world like, how do you navigate the uncertainty? Well, like, you can come to work every day and like try and solve it the way you can, right? And that's been fun for me. Also extremely hard and fun, but yeah, it's like running a race. You're like, cool, I did that distance, never need to do that distance again. I really don't need to go through another COVID. I'm good. But it was like, you really learn who you are.
Oh, big time. Yeah, it's when you're stressed is like, who's going to show up, and being able to stand there and take a little moment back, go, I'm going to pick who shows up instead of just reacting with whatever my initial instincts are, because sometimes that's not always the best route to go.
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about gut reactions and and judging and assumptions, and I mean, that's another point of failure, right? You judge a book by its cover, and you have to make quick decisions as an entrepreneur and a leader. And what I've learned is the more space you can give people and the more trust you can give them, which is really hard, the more they're going to surprise you. Either way, and it works half the time, and the other half it doesn't. Right? But when it does work, it's magic, and that's how I think the really good leaders do it. Is they give first, like give first mentality. They're willing to fail. And there's trust, right? And it's not earned trust, it's given trust. And that's something that I've had to change. Like, I always, people have to earn it. They got to, work really hard first. But if you just skip that part and just give them all the trust, and then if they take it away, if they break that, then and then you can take an action, right? That's what they say, hire slow, fire fast. Like, I don't know if I subscribe to that. I think you should try and make it work and make it fit. But give them that trust, give them that, and let them go. So it's been really cool to do that, because then you're working with humans that you really truly know and care about, and they trust that you're giving them the opportunity to learn and grow, and usually they take it and go and run and surprise you. And then my whole role now is get out of the freaking way. Right? Get out of the way, because like, they know what to do more than I do, right? And I'm just a coach and trying to connect them to the smarter people.
I think that's just that is the spot on role for every CEO to be in there. It's like that deployment of trust allows them to run. You're getting out of their way, going, this is the North Star. I've hired you because you're incredible people. Now run. And they're going to surprise you at how quickly they can come. One other thing that stood out earlier is, like, we talked about the uncertainty a few times. It's like, what I hear about all this is, like, when they come to work, not only do they get to have like this opportunity to do some really cool things that are impacting these charities and nonprofits that are doing incredible work, but like, they're actually coming in to be with certainty. There's a certainty that you get to have, and you've, by the sounds of it, have really cultivated a great culture around the type of certainty to be coming into a very positive experience.
Yeah. I mean, a great culture is something that you have to talk to my team about. If one day I hope to do great culture. I think I have a little bit more failing to do before that, but I think uncertainty and giving people certainty is great. And like, goal setting is something that I failed at with the team, right? We've tried to goal set so many different ways now, and it's still hard because, we had this great goal because people were putting in-person events back on, right? And that's a large chunk of our business that we can finally get back, right? But then you look at the fourth wave that just came through, and that's all gone. So all the goal setting and forecasting is
out the window again.
So it's tricky in that. So it's like, how do you goal set in an uncertain time? How do you provide that certainty? And I think the certainty is reminding people, like, there's going to be change, but we got to like, acknowledge it right away, set a new goal, and that's okay. We move forward, right? And it's a hard balance, because then people don't respect the numbers because they know that they could change, but then at the same point, it's because of circumstances. So, and then the explaining away, I don't think, if someone has a better idea, I'd be all ears. But.
Well, do you mind talking a little bit about how your platform has grown and you guys have responded to what the needs are in like a rapidly changing environment for everybody involved?
Yeah, I mean, we for people in Kelowna, we won the Angel Summit and we had 3 customers, right? That was 2019, and now 2.5 years later, we have 500 customers across North America, 500 charities that have raised money on our platform and are raising money in many different ways, right? So we were an in-person charity, right? In-person charity software for events. And then COVID happened and we lost literally all our customers. We refunded all the tickets that people bought. They all went, into a big panic. And if you think about our customers, like, they're charities, they're serving beneficiaries, and their beneficiaries are probably not better off with the pandemic. I don't know that many people were. So they have increased demand, right? They're trying to help more people, and they just lost all a lot of their revenue, right? And so we just needed to help them. So we stayed in that whole weekend right after COVID hit. It was like, all the sports leagues, they all shut down, and it was like, oh geez, this is a really big problem. It was like mid-March. And so we stayed in all weekend, and kudos to that team that was there with us. That was it was a pretty crazy couple weeks, and we reconfigured the whole business. We focused on virtual. We focused on different types of fundraising, like virtual galas and things. We did that stay-at-home gala right away there with some of the members from Drew with JCI there, and that was really fun. And then that sprung into a ton of other things. And now it's, and then we added auctions because they want to do auctions. And then we just got approved for raffles and 50/50s because that's another great way to raise money when you can't see people in person. So we're just trying to get money into the charities' bank account so they can do the good. And it was really hard for them. And it was, so it's been a ride. I'll tell you that. Like, just flipping the whole company in a weekend is crazy, like rebranding the whole thing.
That's insane. Like it's insane, but it's obviously quite possible, right? Like when all the other options are like cut out, it's just like, we have to do something, and we have to do it in the next 2. It's like you probably ran them through something similar to a startup weekend experience. Like,
pretty much,
we're going, let's do this.
Yeah, and we just put all the tasks that we need to get down. Like, we had the plan, put the tasks down, get it done, and then communicate with our customers. And we almost went too fast. Our charities weren't even ready to have the conversation. Yeah, they were still like meeting about it and then trying to come up with solutions. And we were, a week and a half ahead of them. So that was kind of cool, right? We're small. We were 8 at the time, right? Now we're 17, and you could still be pretty flexible, but not as like, it's really easy to do with an 8-person team. When you get bigger, I'm sure it's harder.
Yeah, but being able to respond to it, right? Like, obviously, stay-at-home gala was like an interesting thing that Drew and that crew brought together, and then doing the national one, and now where that came in, being like, oh, well, actually, some of these national ones want to sell something, like have auction items. Great, now you have an auction platform. And like, maybe talk a little bit about like the raffle stuff. You kind of like glazed over. That's a pretty big thing that you guys have just accomplished.
Yeah. I mean, it's exciting, right? And I think raffles, when they first came out, like in the 80s and 90s, especially for charities, like, it was about awareness, right? So you do raffle for your local hospital foundation, and they would do it, and it was more like, I was born at that hospital, I want to help them out, and it's fun and it's engaging. And we want to kind of really bring that back to the raffle industry. And because we're the only raffle company now that is approved by most of the provinces in BC that can actually do donations as well, like, and give out tax receipts. And we can do tickets, and we can also do the auction. So we're really coming with that holistic package for the charities now. It can really serve them the right way to bring it back to that impact conversation. It's exciting because we got approved, right? I mean, it was an 8-month process. It was, a big investment in both time and money. Then now we got approved in BC and in Alberta and in Manitoba, and we purchased a company to get a bunch of knowledge in the space. We acquired Ecolotto and Paul and his team, which was awesome, in Saskatchewan. And we're hoping to get approved in the other provinces within the calendar year here. So we're excited about it.
Yeah, talk about just adding so many tools to charities and nonprofits tool belt, where who knows if we're going back to any kind of like, I think hybrid events and virtual events are here to stay. There's no putting the genie back in that bottle. And now you've got the tool sets to support all that. And when and if we get back into like big in-person ones, they've also got they can expand their reach well beyond their geographical borders now.
Yeah, exactly. They can hit more geographies, expanded. Just revenues expanded. And you think about it, right? Like, I mean, what Trellis and our mission, what we're trying to do is empower global collective impact. And what that actually means is we're trying to drive more revenue into their bank account in a more sustainable and diverse way, so that they have more time and money to then focus on actually solving these problems. Because it's hilarious in a really sad way, unfortunately, is the industry that probably has one of the most direct impacts on all the world's problems is like the underfunded and under-resourced.
Yeah.
So therefore, so they're trying to solve these really complex societal, environmental problems with short-term thinking because they don't know if they're going to have a paycheck in 2 months. It's like they're all startups trying to solve the biggest problems, right? And it's like, yeah, like I'm a startup guy, I love it, but I mean, a lot of people don't love startups, and
Yeah.
there's a reason, because you want companies that are established, that are solving the problem effectively and moving forward as well. And I think if we can help these charities do that, right? And I'm not saying all charities, like there's a lot of charities and most of charities are great, but I think it is a pretty common theme. It's a little bit underfunding and under-resourced. And so if we can help them in those two ways, then imagine the possibilities. Imagine how we can start solving these systemic problems in a really good way.
Yeah, just thinking about allowing them to think beyond like that short term, like quarter to a year of funding. Be like, what could you do if you knew you could sustain this for 5 years? Like we were talking about it again earlier, is this like all of a sudden they become like a charity overnight success if they can sustain themselves for 5 years, right? It's like, can you keep doing the same thing without losing the traction of going, oh crap, we got to go like chase the money now. Pause for 6 months and then go. Like you know what it's like just from trying to chase money from a startup lens.
Totally.
It's a full-time job.
Yeah. Well, and when you think about it too, I mean, when you talk about chasing the money, right? And just think about the power dynamic that introduces, Gene. Like, I mean, if you're a charity and you're trying to solve the beneficiary's problem, and that's the core of your business, but then you have to go and pander to donors that might think something different, but don't actually understand the problem because they don't have those lived experiences, then therefore you're not actually going to solve the problem in a good way. But if we can, maybe help them put on an event with our software, or do a raffle or an auction instead, you're moving that power dynamic a little bit more to the charity side. And then they start getting a little bit more time and money, and then they can start solving those problems, or they can maybe accumulate an asset, right?
Yeah.
And then they can start being more sustainable, right? Or they can do a different revenue generation. Like I love the commercials, Hinge for dating. I've actually never used it, but the whole ad is like, we hope that you uninstall us because you found your partner, right?
Yeah.
And I hope that charities start uninstalling Trellis, because that means that they've caught it all the way to a point of sustainability. And that's not every charity. Some charities, because having the beneficiary at the core and just donation dollars is what they need. But there's a lot of charities that want to become more sustainable. And if they graduated all the way through and then didn't need us anymore because they don't need to do auctions, because they bought the building they work in and they rent out the top 2 floors to make money to then service their people, like, oh man, I would love to not have work because of that. That
would be like, what a beautiful opportunity to actually see through that vision, right? And to know, I hope for you guys that you do get people that are like, hey, Trellis, we actually don't need you anymore. We've become sustainable. Like, that's like a celebration moment. Be like, you graduated. Like, welcome. And we're excited about what you're doing now. Yeah. Well, you always are, but like, I wish for that as well. Like, that's like the part about like why like the idea of the social enterprise versus the charities is like, you got to find that nice mix of like, unfortunately, money does move the gears of the world, and there needs to be a way to make that happen. So how do you merge this idea of a business and still doing good, and like deploying that on a regular basis? Yeah, no, for sure. That's the theory, that's the thesis, and that's what we're trying. But it's a that's a 10-year play, right? And that's why I said like the vision's gotten longer, right? And the shorter has gotten shorter, right? And so hopefully the short will actually get longer for my sanity and everyone else's sanity, I'm sure, in their businesses. But it's just like, well, what's the consistent? We're going to change something. That's the consistent. And then we can keep looking up to the big vision. Yeah, right. Because the big vision gives you that North Star. And then there's the conversations that get you there, right? And the customers that get you there. And we know that, right? Our core is looking at, like, when we say all in one, what I mean is like, we're not looking for the charity that just does a raffle and that's it. They don't do any other fundraising. They might as well go find a raffle company that just does raffles that can service them. But if they do a bunch of different things and their whole vision is to add revenue streams and diversify and become more impactful, that's what we want. We want those charities. And not everyone's like that. And that's totally okay. And I think a lot of charities would be like, no, we don't want to become a social enterprise. And that's totally fair, because adding in revenue thinking and all that does change perspectives of organizations. Right. And that's totally fair. But the ones that do, those are the ones we want, because they desperately want to act more enterprising, for lack of a better term. And if we can help them do that,
by diversifying that and making them more sustainable. It's I just get really excited. Sorry. And now I'm just rambling.
No, ramble away. That's where, obviously, this is where the passion sits. And this is like what lights people up to know this. And really, I think that's a really interesting clarity you have on who is your ideal client, right? Like, what was it like to, obviously that wasn't like when you wrote down the business plan originally for Trellis, that wasn't your ideal thing. So what was your aha moment? Or like, I know we talked about all these little things, but like, was there a couple like milestones that you hit where you're like, oh, okay, this is exactly who we need to talk to, and all of a sudden things started to open?
Yeah, I think so. A couple. I mean, people should look up theory of change. It's kind of also known as like a mission statement for an impact company. So it's more of a theory about how you're going to try and make the world a better place, simply put.
Okay.
And so it's a little bit more robust than a mission statement. And basically what happened is I read a paper written by Colleen Meyer, actually. She's one of our advisors. She works at Okanagan College. She's wonderful. And she wrote it. It's called Mission Possibles, the group. They were asked, 5 times why, like, what do you do? Oh, we give food and blankets. What do you do? Oh, we what does that do? Well, it keeps them warm and fed. Okay, well, what about after they're warm and fed for a night? What happens? Well, we give it to them again the next day, right? And then they realized, well, actually, we're starting to learn about these individuals that keep coming to our charity. So, how do we get them out of the cycle of poverty? Well, it's giving them purpose and self-worth is actually how you get people out of the cycle of poverty. That's what they found. Don't know if that's true, but it worked for them. So in the end, they started developing these little, clean up the streets from graffiti and pay them, right? Get them into housing that they paid for, not given to them. So they earned it, and they have self-worth, and they have purpose now because they have a job and they have that their way. So now they're using the food and blankets to get to know people, to then figure out how they can maybe get them employed if they're interested.
Wow. So right? it's like the food and blankets is the top of their funnel, and then the bottom is like result. The bottom is self-worth and
So a lot of the industry is thinking about inputs and outputs, and you need like 5 or 6 or 7 outputs to get an outcome, and then maybe an outcome leads to impact, right? Like that person that gets out of poverty because you put all these different outputs and systems together. So unfortunately, because they're under-resourced and understaffed, they can't do that. So when I saw that was like before Trellis was a thing, or we were going to help them fundraise. I was just looking at the industry to see what the problems were. And then when I read that, I was like, that is the problem.
Yeah.
Like if we can get charities thinking that way and get everyone, Brian Polstwaite, I apologize. I think I didn't say his last name correctly, but he was the one that came in and asked those hard questions. And if we had someone at each charity asking those hard questions, that's how we get to impact. So like, how do I build a software that can do that? So that's how it started, and that was that aha moment right at the start. And then later on, it's just meeting charities and understanding that not all charities want what I'm saying. Like there's some that'll scoff and be like, no, we're donation focused, we're focused on the beneficiary only, and if we focus on revenue, our alignment through the beneficiary is going to go off, and that's not who we are as core, and that's great. And I don't want to say I'm this this white tech guy coming in and telling them what to do. Like that's not it. I realize it's not for everyone, but I think there is a strong subset that would like to do that. And just think about our communities, how much stronger they would be if there was social enterprises like that all around. I think it'd be really cool.
Well, I just think about, like, as you're telling those stories, like the ripple effects, right? Because now you guys are supporting 17 families within your business that are then supporting 500 organizations who are then supporting 100x beneficiaries to far more. Like, that's a lot of ripple of change being impacted already, and you get to use the platform as a bit of like the top of your funnel to get to your outcome of like helping the people who are ready to become social enterprises get their initial footing under them to find, it's like their version of their own self-worth is like, we can do this. What else can we do?
Exactly. Right. And going deeper. And that's it. Like, I don't think I'm any better than anyone else because we help charities. That doesn't give me the right to just think I'm better. Like, I'm just creating a better mousetrap right now for charities, but that's just the beginning. And we are trying to get further and really create that impact and look at that and like develop a theory of change and have a mission and a purpose that's a lot bigger than simply making them a little bit more efficient. Right. And just because we help charities doesn't make us a better company or a social enterprise. What makes us a social enterprise in my mind is that purpose and impact is at the core, of what we do and how we think, and that's what it is. And we could have done this in the the Star Trek company or whatever. I'm just looking at stuff in the background there. Whatever company it is, right? Like it doesn't have to be just because we're charities. It is definitely, people just make the connection a little closer, but there's some really cool organizations doing that in their own way that you would never expect. So it's if people are thinking about putting impact and diversity and inclusion and purpose in their company, I think think about the biggest companies in the world. Who's going to take over Amazon, right? It's going to be an Amazon for good, because all the bad press Amazon gets is just about how much money their founder is and how bad they treat employees. So at some point, they're going to get fed up with that. And someone's literally going to build the same thing. They're just going to treat their employees nicer and be a little bit more impactful, right? They're going to be it's going to be Amazon B Corp, right? Like that's the future of commerce, is doing the same commerce we're doing, but just doing it and having that triple bottom line, or focusing on our ESGs or whatever it is, right? Because I mean, young people now, they know we're 2040's coming, 2050's coming. So
and they're asking different questions and demanding better answers too, right? And a better experience. And like when they're driving towards purpose, and that triple bottom line means a lot, because if they're going to show up and trade their time to do work for you, and they want it to actually mean something more than an EFT in their bank account every 2 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, it has to, right? Like, I don't know if you should look up the MIT study done in 1970, and they predicted what's going to happen, and we're right on track. Like, it's 2040, 2050, like it's the climate crisis is real, and the societal crisis is real, the mental health crisis is real. It's all real. And instead of trying to dwell on that fear, this is what I dwell on. Like, hey, here's our theory of change. This is how my organization is going to try and do it. And then I try and have some fun outside of that if I can, because it's too, and then I try and stay off those papers too much, because it's hard.
Oh yeah. Well, it's at the end of the day, like, none of us get out of this alive, so we might as well enjoy it a little bit while we're going through it.
Right. Good point. I like that.
Well, man, remember how I said at the start of this, I was going to look up and be like, hey, we're at 40 minutes. We're at 42 minutes of a great conversation. All right, Justin. I want to honor your time big time here. So I know that you're a very, very busy man, and I so appreciate this conversation. This was just a wonderful conversation about everything that's been going on in your world and how you're impacting it. And I just want to thank you again for showing up and being vulnerable and really pulling back the curtain today.
Awesome. Well, hey, Gene, thank you. Thank you for calling it Peeled Back. I loved it when I saw it, when the first one came out. I was like, that I know exactly what he's going to do. He's going to go deep, and he's going to talk about the reality and allow people to realize that we're all in the same boat together, all fighting the same battles. So thank you for having those vulnerable conversations and also being vulnerable yourself and doing it. You're eating your own dog food, man. So keep it up. Thank you.
Somebody has to.
Someone's got to. I'm not going to eat yours, but yeah.
Well, before I let you go, we always end the show with asking the same question. Is, I've got a time machine. We're going to hop in it and go back 10 years. You get to give your younger self one piece of advice. What would that be?
One piece of advice. I think it's enjoy the journey. And if there was a subtext to that, it would be, with purpose, hard work, and good values. Cool. And the happiness will come. Like, I think it's really trying, because it's, enjoy the journey, enjoy the process, because that's all life really is. And you got to enjoy that. So if it's with if there's certain people you like to enjoy the journey with, or there's certain purposes you like to go at, or there's, you need that value alignment to do that as well. So enjoy that journey. And because you stress out about it working out. If you work hard, you have good values and purpose, it's going to work out. So just enjoy the journey. And that is more for myself to listen to, again, being selfish again. So
I love it, because it ties right into everything I talk about. It is really all about enjoying the journey. It's like, how can we enjoy that process? So I am a big fan of that piece of advice, and I will take that to heart as well.
Wicked. Awesome. Thanks, Gene. Hopefully people enjoyed this.
All right, brother. Well, thank you very much. And to everybody that's been watching, thank you for watching episode 62 with Justin Goodhew. And until next Wednesday, find one thing to enjoy your journey. Till then, later.